Hello again, Saints. Well, thank everyone for joining us for another Acts of the Apostle survey. In the Acts of the Apostle survey, we are looking at the flight path of the Lord, as some might call the second advent of the Lord, and things like that. But folks, there's much more that goes into it than just only the Lord's return here to doth judge and make war. There's what's going to take place, the flight path in which he's going to go on, the route in which he's going to take, as he's going to be doing something that was rehearsed before in the book of Wars, and he's going to be as that man of war, and he's going to be going and he's going to be showing that he's going to destroy, he's going to scatter his enemies, and then it's going to be those 10 nations that's going to wage turmoil against Israel's enemies. And it's not America, Europe, and all these other places that people assume that it is, but it's actually the 10 nations that surround Israel. And as I said before, there are going to be 10 of Satan's heads or dragons in those waters, also, where the Lord is going to dry up those waters and cast those foul serpents out, those dragons out, in and where they have to be upon dry land, where they go and they wander. And long story with that. But again, we're looking at the Acts of the Apostle survey. Acts of the Apostle survey. This is lesson 7, and we're looking at the flight path of the Lord, and we're looking at the ark and the Lord before Israel as the men of war. See, because what was going on there is that the Lord, when Israel had, and we're going to look at it, there were 2 arks. It was the ark that was in the midst of the people, the one of gold, but then there was the one Moses had, which was the smaller ark. And it was the ark with the tabernacle of the testimony that went before the people. And when that went before the people, that was as if that was the Lord himself going before Israel. And he wasn't in the midst of Israel. He wasn't it. Well, we know he's their God, but he, as the man of war, he was going before when Moses went before them, in front of them, and with the ark while they were going to battle. The Lord, it was by the Lord's hand that he scattered them. Again, you didn't see Israel murmuring and chiding during that time. The Lord was, you're going to see the waters stand up again, but this time in Jordan. Not only did he do it with the Red Sea, but he's going to do it in Jordan as well. And what he's doing, he's giving them an interlude blessing. They're going through an interlude blessing, but they are also seeing the Lord as the deliverer and the avenger. One that's going to be delivering his people, but also avenging their enemies. But you'll see they hated the Lord. Capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D, Jehovah is who they hated. And they hated the God of those people. But you know what? Let's just move right on, because I want to take a look at a lot of verses here, folks, and hopefully maybe we can look at a couple of maps as well. Because what I do want to get to is actually the flight path. Right now, what we're going to look at, we're going to look at the ark. We're going to look at the ark and the significance of that, and the differences of the Ark of the Covenant, or let's just get right into it. let's look at Numbers. As a matter of fact, we're not even going to go to Acts chapter 1 to refresh your memory. We'll just come over to, for time's sake, let's come to Numbers chapter 10. I'm pretty sure we know from whence the whole study is coming from, Romans 1 verse 11. And they departed from the mount of the Lord 3 days' journey, and the ark of the covenant of the Lord went before them in the 3 days' journey to search out a resting place for them. And as I made mention before, when you see that 3 days, this is significant to when it says, and it was buried and rose again the 3rd day, according to the scripture. See, scriptures pointed out the death, burial, and resurrection of the Lord over and over. And this is just one particular place. You know, what you have 3 days, Israel's doing something. And then on the third day, the Lord provided. He redeemed them. But, and they knew that, folks. They knew and understood that, what this meant. Look at verse 34. And the cloud of the Lord was upon them by day when they went out of the camp. Now, remember when it talked about in 1 Corinthians chapter 10 about they followed that rock, and that rock was Christ. And it was baptized in the cloud and in the sea. But look at verse 35. And it came to pass when the ark set forward, Moses said, notice this, rise up, Lord, Jehovah, let thine enemies be scattered, and let them that hate thee flee before thee. Now that's what I want to put. I know we looked at this before, but I wanted to put this into your perspective, into your understanding, because what I was going to do was end it with, well, this was going to be the last study in the flight path, but I'm going to do another one to show the actual route itself. But right here, I wanted to make sure we understand the significance of the ark itself, because the ark went before them, but it was the Lord. And each time when they would set forward, Moses said, "Rise up, Lord." And it was the Lord actually walking with them, and it was the ark, but it was Moses leading the people through, with the Lord. Look at and let thine enemies be scattered, and let them that hate thee. He didn't say let them that hate us flee before us. No, let them that hate thee flee before thee. Look at verse 36. And notice it says, and when it rested. Now, what do they mean by it? It's the ark, folks. And when it rested, he said, return, O Lord, unto many thousands, of Israel. Now, when it says let them return, it's speaking of let them also, well, I have to call. I'm calling back in, folks. It got erased. It got erased. So sorry. There's no erased it. Yeah, I just. Oh boy. Okay. I think we're on our way now, folks. But look at verse 35 again. And it came to pass when the ark set forward that Moses said, rise up, Lord, and let thine enemies be scattered. Let them that hate thee flee before thee. And when it rested, he said, return, O Lord, unto many thousands of Israel. Now, as you see here, the it is in verse 35 when the ark set forward. So now you see the it is the ark. And that's what I want. That's what I want us to keep into perspective here. But the ark is significant unto not only just Moses, but to the people, that it is the Lord that is doing this. Now look at look at Psalm 68, verse 1. To the chief musician, a psalm or song of David, let God arise. There it is. Let his enemies be scattered. Let them also that hate him flee before him. Now, this is what the psalmist is saying here. And what was said before, we saw that was in Numbers. This is years later. And what they're looking forward to here, what's being looked before or looked unto, is when the Lord is going to be in the name Jah. And that Jah is not a common everyday name. As we looked in the last study, folks, if you didn't get that, take a look at when I mentioned about the names. And you look even in the book of Revelation, there's about 3 different names mentioned. Matter of fact, one name is not even mentioned, that no man knows of the Lord. But you see what's going on here. Now look at verse 2. As smoke is driven away, so drive them away. As wax melteth before the fire, so let the wicked perish at the presence of God. Wait a minute, presence? Well, at that time, it was the ark we see in the book of Numbers. But here, this is going to be when he's actually going to come back. But it all was significant, and it was rehearsed earlier and documented in the book of War, the Wars of the Lord. Look at verse 3. But let the righteous be glad. Let them that rejoice before God, yea, let them exceedingly rejoice. Now, not just rejoice and be glad, but exceedingly rejoice. Why? Sing praises unto God. Sing praises to his name. Exalt him that rideth upon the heavens by his name, Jah. and rejoice before him. Now remember, see all that rejoicing there? They're going to be doing rejoicing because he's going to be, as I said, he's going to be as that avenger. He's going to be avenging them. And he acted as that avenger. Well, he delivered them first, and then he acted as as an avenger, but not just avenger, a victor. As a victor, Israel's victory, but his victor, he has a, you know what I mean. Okay. I hate to say that because people say, "Oh, well, so is his name Victor? Is his name?" So let's not even go there. But with this, what we're looking at here, the significance of the Lord's flight path, that he's battling the enemies in whom Satan is the one, the mover and shaker, to try to destroy and wipe the nation out, and have them to worship him as the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth. That's what his desire. I will be like the Most High. So what we see going on here, folks, is something that we ought to notice about that ark, the significance of it, and notice what it meant to Israel. And all of Israel saw the mighty works of the Lord. They knew it wasn't just some box. They knew it wasn't just some them getting lucky either. They knew as what the Lord did with their fathers, he's doing it now in the midst of them. But you know what? Let's move on here. Moving on to let's look at Joshua. Yeah, let's take a look at Joshua chapter 4. Joshua chapter 4, look at verse 1. And it came to pass when all the people were clean passed over Jordan, that the Lord spake unto Joshua, saying, and notice, all the people, they passed over Jordan on dry land. This isn't muddy area where it just so happened that fifth month every 1,000 years the waters dry up and hold back some. No, this, well, you know how long it would take for a riverbed to dry up so you can walk over it with chariots, horses? It would take years. But look at or it could take the power of the Lord, and that's what you see happen here. Take you 12 men out of the people, out of every tribe a man. Now, what you see what's going to be happening here is the stones that's going to be placed. And again, this is really important to take a look at this as well, because when we're going to look at the flight path of the Lord, the stones, that's significant. The stones is significant as well. Where the stones are going to be placed at. You're going to see where they're going to be placed. And then in the next study, when we go and we look at the flight path of the Lord, you have already had it docketed in your mind about where we saw that. Look at verse 3. And command ye them, saying, take ye hence out of the midst of Jordan, out of the place where the priest's feet stood firm, 12 stones, and ye shall carry them over with you, and leave them in the lodging place where ye shall lodge this night. Now notice, the priest's feet stood firm, and their feet isn't standing firm because they're cemented in mud and they can't move their feet. That's not what it's saying. They're not sloshing around either, folks. Where their feet stood firm, dry land, 12 stones. And they took 12 stones, and 12 men took out 12 stones. Now look at verse 4. Then Joshua called the 12 men whom he had prepared of the children of Israel, out of every tribe a man. And now you see the significance about that, because they all had part, all 12, and not just the 10 and the 2, not just the southern. No, all 12 had part. And all 12 had part even when the Lord came back. Even in the Lord's day, when the Lord came back, he wasn't forgetting his promise with the northern kingdom. But look at verse 5 now. And Joshua said unto them, pass over before the ark of the Lord your God into the midst of Jordan, and take ye up every man of you a stone upon his shoulder, according unto the number of the tribes of the children of Israel. But notice it says, pass over before the ark of the Lord your God into the midst. That's what they knew to do. That's what they're going to do. They're going to pass this over. And notice when they're passing this over into the midst of Jordan, they're passing it over, and it's going to be going over. This is signifying what the Lord is going to do. Look at verse 6 now. That this may be a sign among you, that when your children ask their fathers in the time to come, saying, what mean ye by these stones? Now, this is what the ones even in Revelation time, they're going to be looking upon this. This is going to be something they're going to bring in remembrance. Verse 7, then shall ye answer them that the waters of Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord when it passed over Jordan. The waters of Jordan were cut off, and these stones shall be for a memorial unto the children of Israel forever. Now that is going to be a memorial for them, and they're going to take heed unto that. They're going to know what this meaneth. Now, we're going to come back to Joshua 4 in a second, but we're going to continue down and take a look at some of the details there about with the ark, with the 12 stones, where it's placed, and the significance of it. And what that significance is you got to understand that they were redeemed, they were saved out of a predicament. The Lord provided. As the Redeemer, He provided up for them. He delivered them through those waters. And then He was going to go and avenge them. But He's providing for them a predicament, and they themselves now, all 12, one out of every tribe, took his own stone, and he put it in those waters. And that was to signify Israel's being brought into a land, and they're being redeemed, saved out of that what could have been, and they're going, and they're acting, the Lord's being their avenger, and they're right there as Jacob, the mighty prince. And when the people whom they were destroying, those nations they were scattering, they weren't just looking at Israel and saying, "Oh, look at those people! They're wiping out the, there's so many of them." Remember, it's thousands of them. Could have been millions of their enemies. It didn't matter. They feared the Lord. They knew. See, the Lord wasn't going to have enemies and then not let those people know that whom they're fleeing before is actually the Lord Himself. And that's the point. That's the point there, But you know what? Let's just move on here. Let's move on. And yeah, okay. Phone call coming in. I'll talk to the preacher later. Look at Joshua 4, look at verse 8. And the children of Israel did as Joshua commanded, and took up 12 stones in the midst of Jordan, as the Lord spake unto Joshua, according to the number of the tribes of the children of Israel, and carried them over with them unto the place where they lodged, and laid them down there. Now, notice what's being said here. As the Lord spake unto Joshua, according to the number of the tribes of the children of Israel, and carried them over with them. So as they took them out of the midst, and then as they took them out, they carried them over with them unto the place where they lodged. And they had them on their shoulder, and they brought it over. And they laid them down there. But notice where. They were a place where they rested. It was a rest. And yes, a rest signifies a Sabbath. But look up verse 9. And Joshua set up 12 stones in the midst of Jordan, in the place where the feet and folks, this is not, when it says in the midst of Jordan, it's not saying it was actually right in the middle of the river where he's doing. Remember, it says they lodged. There's a place they lodged. They took them out of the mid. It says out of the midst of Jordan, And then they walked and they took it and carried them over with them into the place where they lodged and laid them down there. How I know you understand that. And Joshua set up 12 stones in the midst of Jordan, in the place where the feet of the priests which bear the ark of the covenant stood, and they are there unto this day. Now, this ark, which was what you see here, is the place where is the ark of the golden ark. You had the golden ark, which was in the midst of the people, but then you had the ark, and we'll get to the tabernacle of the testimony and things like that in a second. But notice this is what they're talking about here. Verse 10, for the priests which bear the ark stood in the midst of Jordan until everything was finished that the Lord commanded Joshua to speak unto the people, according to all that Moses commanded Joshua, and the people hasted and passed over. But again, as I said before, they're there in the midst of Jordan, and they hasted. It says hasted, and they didn't haste and run because they thought the waters was going to come back, but they hasted and they passed over. And it came to pass when all the people were clean, not now, they're clean passed over Jordan. And see, that's why I didn't say River Jordan, folks, because you know what that is, but I didn't want people to say, wait a minute, so they're standing in water? Well, no, this is, the Lord was staying the waters, and we're going to see verses. It mentioned how the waters were cut off by the power of the Lord. But look at verse 11. And it came to pass when all the people were clean over that the ark of the Lord passed over, and the priests and the priests in the presence of the people. And look at verse 13. I'll come down to verse 13. About 40,000 prepared for war passed over before the Lord unto battle to the plains of Jericho. Now, it tells you how many people there were prepared for war. Now, look over, and remember, they have their children and wives and everything else. Look at verse 14. On that day, the Lord magnified Joshua in the sight of all Israel, and they feared him as they feared Moses all the days of his life. And the Lord spake unto Joshua, saying, command the priests that bear the ark of the testimony that they come up out of Jordan. Now, as I said before, we're looking at what we see here. We're going to look at the different arks, because there were two there. And I understand the situation, and we'll get back into that later about that. But as they're doing this is what the Lord's doing through Joshua. I don't know, did I say Moses before? I don't know. Yeah, well, that was what I was saying as far as what we looked at numbers and all that. So yeah, that was, but here, I got it right. In this situation here, we're looking at, is Joshua doing this as was done before with Moses. And so now you see what's taking place here, what they're doing, and the significance with the stones being placed at that point there. They placed the stones where they crossed and they came in at. And you're going to see how that's going to be significant and I hope we have time to look at that in this study here. But if not, we'll definitely have to look at it in the next study, because that's going to be talking about the flight path and where he's going to start, and all that. But you know what? For time's sake, let's just keep it moving. Look at Joshua. We'll stay in Joshua 4. Stay in Joshua 4. And let's take a look at verse 21. Verse 21. And he spake unto the children of Israel, saying, when your children shall ask their fathers in the time to come, saying, what mean these stones? Ye shall let your children know, saying, Israel came over this Jordan on dry land. For the Lord your God dried up the waters of Jordan from before you until ye were passed over. And the Lord notice this, as the Lord your God did to the Red Sea when he dried up from before us, until we were gone over. Now, Folks, what I want you to notice, and I'm just say this now before I go any further. You notice the references here. When he says the children's going to ask their fathers what mean these stones, because they're going to read about it. And even those that when they come through, when that becomes to be the case out there, they're going to know that all this drying up of the Red Sea, Jordan, this is going to be significant to what the Lord is going to be doing when he comes to dry up those waters with Leviathan and his dragons in the seas, in those waters. But you notice how easy it is to just dry it up, stand it up on a heap, or just dry it up altogether and let people go pass on over them. And but look at verse 24, that all the people of the earth might know the hand of the Lord, that it is mighty, that ye might fear the Lord your God forever. But you notice that they knew the Lord was doing this. The enemies, all the people of the earth, they knew that it was by the hand of the Lord this was done. Now let's take a look again, as I said before, the ark of gold and the ark of the testimony of the tabernacle. Look at Numbers 10 now. Again, we'll come back to Numbers 10. And we're going to see how the Kohathites, it was a family of the Kohathites, they were put in charge of the ark, in a sense. Another thing we're going to look at is how God gave men skill so they can make these things. And when you look at why the Egyptians enslaved Israel, well, one, you see all through Egypt, all the works in Egypt. Hey, that was done on the backs of the Jews. But look at verse 33. And they departed from the mount of the Lord 3 days' journey, and the ark of the covenant of the Lord went before them in the 3 days' journey to search out a resting place for them. Now we saw that there. And I wanted to come back and take a look at this because the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord went before them 3 days. That's what I'm after. We see Ark of the Covenant of the Lord, it went before them. Now look at Numbers chapter 3. Numbers 3, look at verse 30. And the chief of the house of the father of the families of the Kohathites shall be Elizaphan, the son of Uzziel, and their charge shall be the ark, and the table, and the candlestick, and the altars, and the vessel of the sanctuary, wherewith they minister, and the hanging, and all the service thereof. Now, the Kohathites, as you see, they're given charge. They're given charge over the ark in itself. And we're going to see the men that actually put it together and all that. And again, folks, we're just looking at the details. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that, because what I want us to understand is that the care, it wasn't just any old Israelite that just, it wasn't just that they went down there and just, as they did when they made the molten calf. You just had some guys getting together and people taking taking gold and putting it together to make a calf. No, these people were skilled by the Lord. They had to be. That's the point here. This was the first, I hate to say, even a dress rehearsal of a temple. Because I gotta think about it. Israel didn't have a temple. They were on the go. They just come out of captivity. Then they were in the wilderness. They didn't have a holy place, so to speak, yet. This was giving them a foretaste of the Holy of Holies, in a sense, of the temple itself. And so within the temple was the Word of God. And what do you think is in the ark? I mean, all you have to do is think like this. If you're having a temple, and it's the temple of God, that's why it says the Lord, rise up, Lord, because that's signified. signified as if the Lord is in there with the word and a holy place and is going before them and it's scatter. Here come the Holy of Holies, scatter, and the Most High God. And Jacob behind me, mighty prince, Jacob, that flee, scatter before us. And that's what it was showing to the world. And all Israel had to do was just stay steadfast and not do as we see them do. They go right out there and start going after strange gods but let's keep it moving. Let's go to Exodus now. Look at Exodus 35. Exodus 35. Look at verse 30. Exodus 35, verse 30. Instead of me texting back, let me just do this. And Moses said unto the children of Israel, see, the Lord hath called. Well, you know what? Gotta highlight this part to make sure you can see that. Yeah. Here we go. All right. The Lord hath called by name, Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah, and he that filled him with the Spirit of God in wisdom, in understanding, and in knowledge, and in all manner of workmanship. Now, notice, he hath filled him with the Spirit of God in wisdom. And see, all this here, what you see is going to be in wisdom and understanding and knowledge and all manner of workmanship, and to devise curious works, to work in gold and in silver and in brass and in cutting stones to set them, and in carving of wood to make any manner of cunning work. Hey, you ever notice where these other nations tried to get their skill from? It's from Israel. But and God got what God. Notice it wasn't just filling a man with workmanship to devise. No, the Spirit of God, meaning he wasn't going to be coming up and saying, hey, you know what? All these idol people, you know what? Hey, I'll make you guys your idols. I'm going to make money on the side. No, these were faithful men. Verse 34. Well, let's do 33 again. And in the cutting of stones to set them, and in carving of wood to make any manner of cunning work. And he hath put in his heart that he may teach both he and Aholab. Yeah, I guess I tried. The son of Ishamach of the tribe of Dan, them hath he filled with the wisdom of heart to work all manner of work of the engraver and of the cunning workman and of the embroiderer in blue and in purple and in scarlet and in fine linen and in the weaver, even of them that do any work and of those that devise cunning work. Now, we see it hath filled them, his heart, with wisdom of heart. Look at Exodus 37, verse 1. And Bezalel made the ark of shittim wood, 2 cubits and a half was the length of it, and a cubit and a half the breadth of it, and a cubit and a half the height of it. Verse 2. And he overlaid it with pure gold within and without, and made a crown of gold to fit round about. Now, what you see this being done, and the ark itself is being made, and this is the one that's being made that's going to be in the midst of them. This is going to be the one that's in the midst of them, and you're going to see. We'll look at what was in it. Well, not everything is in it, but when we looked at some of the things before, when it talks about some of the things, the candlestick, all those things in the before, but we'll look at the details of it. And I you know what? I don't want to actually look at the details of it and all that in the sense of what like the design and what it's going to tell you. I know we just looked at it a little bit there, but there's other verses that talks about what they made it with, the size, what it looked like. Their cherubims, put cherubims around it and all that. We're not going to get into that. We're just going to get into the idea that it was by the Spirit of God, because it had to be, because the significance of the ark itself and the one ark, it brought forth. It was the Lord Himself going before. You had the one that was in the midst of them. As I said before, it's a temple of the Lord itself, where the house of God is going to reside, holy, and that they ought to have viewed it that way. That was the reason why it wasn't just, hey, make me a box, make me a couple of boxes, and just carry the broken pieces of the tablets in it. It was far more than that, folks. Far more than that. Because they knew, as we see, rise up, Lord. But let's move on. We're now to Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy chapter 10, look at verse 1. At that time the Lord said unto me, hew thee 2 tables of stone, like unto the first, and come up in unto me in the mount, and to make thee an ark of wood. Now this is in Deuteronomy, but notice what's being shown here. 2 tables of stone, like unto the first, and come up unto me into the mount. Now come up unto me into the mount. Hey, he's not talking to everybody here. We know he's not talking to everybody to come up unto the Lord, unto his presence. We know what he said if they were to try to do that. But notice it's of wood, not gold. Verse 2, and I will write on the tables the words that were in the first tables, which thou breakest. That's funny. But, and I'm saying that to say, it's almost as if the Lord made it the first time and then he tripped, fell, broke it, and now the Lord got to make it. Well, and thou shalt put them in the ark. We notice he's writing, the Lord said, I will write on. He's going to be writing on the tables of the words that were in the first tables, which thou breakest. Verse 3, and I made an ark of shittim wood, and hewed 2 tables of stone like unto the first, and went up into the mount, having the 2 tables in mine hand. Verse 4, and he wrote on the tables, according to the first writing, the 10 commandments, which the Lord spake unto you in the mount out of the midst of the fire in the day of the assembly. And the Lord gave them unto me. And I turned myself and came down from the mount and put the tables in the ark, which I had made. Notice he made, not the Kohathites. And there they be, as the Lord commanded me. Now, I want you to come to take a look at Revelation 15 now. Take a look at Revelation 15, because now we're getting to, remember, in this ark, the one made of wood, it's the commandments were in that one, the one the Lord wrote with his own hand, as it says. Look at Revelation 15, look at verse 3. And they sing the song of Moses, the servant of God. Hey, that's over there in Exodus, the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb, saying, great and marvelous are thy works, Lord God Almighty. Just and true are thy ways, thou King of the saints. Now, look at verse 4. Who shall not fear thee, O Lord? Who shall not fear thee? Well, that's the way it ought to be. And glorify thy name, for thou only art holy, for all nations shall come and worship before thee, for thy judgments are manifest. Now, are made manifest. Now, remember when I made mention about all nations are going to come up to Jerusalem. We saw the verses. They're going to come up to Jerusalem, but as they come up, they're going to be passing by the caged foul spirits. They're going to be passing by the pit open. They're going to be seeing the smoke coming up, and they're going to be all that. They're going to be seeing these things. Look at verse 5. And after that I looked and beheld the temple of the tabernacle of the testimony in heaven was open. Now, this is the temple of the tabernacle of the testimony. And what's in the temple? Well, the tabernacle. What's in the tabernacle? The testimony of heaven was opened. And as you see here, there are two different arcs. There's two different arcs there. One was made and made with skill and made by the Kohathites, and they were given wisdom and knowledge and all these things and craftsmanship to make this, because it was larger, a lot larger than what Moses made. What Moses made, you see, it was an ark of wood, something he himself made, where the Lord himself put the commandments in that. The Lord made it was put there. And so you're dealing with two different arcs here. But the one ark, the one that you see that went before them, was the ark of the Lord, and it was to show battle. And it was to show that it was the Lord that was going to be scattering his enemies. And I'm not trying to belabor it, folks, but that's leading us to where we're going to right now. So that's what I wanted to put into our perspective, because I didn't touch on the issue about which we're looking at when the Lord comes back, but not looking at the rehearsal of it. But we'll get to the flight in a minute. But as they were going, it wasn't just Israel themselves being a whole bunch of people, and there are more people, and maybe they might have lost maybe 10,000, but the other people lost 100,000. No, it wasn't a head of Israel harmed in this battle. It wasn't a hair of their head harmed. It was because it was the Lord doing the fight for them. They were scattering. They were fleeing before the Lord. They knew whom they were battling. And that's going to be similar to out there in that day when he's going to come back. And they're going to be cursing the God of heaven. They're going to hate him too. But let's move on. Look at Revelation. Let's now deal with some things about the ark and all that, but we're going to be dealing with it in a different light. You'll see. Look at Revelation 11. Look at verse 18. And the nations were angry. Here it is here. And thy wrath is come, and the time of the dead, that they should be judged, and that thou shouldest give reward unto the servants of the prophets, and to the saints, and to them that fear thy name, small and great, and shouldest destroy them which destroy the earth. But remember, we just saw about that they should fear his name, fear him. But the nations are angry. What do you think is going to happen here? They're angry. You think they are just mad at God because, like people say, well, my faith is failing me because God's letting me do this, and I'm mad at God. No, this isn't that, folks. They're going to want to make war. Now, look at verse 19. And the temple, here it is here, and the temple of God was opened in heaven, and there was seen in his temple, this is it, the ark of his testament. And there were lightnings and voices and thunderings and earthquake and great hail. Well, you want to know where it went? That's where it's at, folks. That's where the tabernacle of the testimony, well, the temple of the tabernacle of the testimony, that's what's going on. That's what was opened. And this is what we see take place here. And that's what's going to be in that day. But you notice this goes right along with the nations, and he's getting ready to destroy them. But here comes the book. The book opens. It opens up now, and now you see, well, what do you think they're getting ready to open? What do you think they're getting ready? The books of the wars of the Lord. Yeah, it's getting ready to go down again, if you will. The book of the war of the Lord. is getting ready to take place. And I don't want to get into whether an angel's going to read from it or they're going to now act upon everything, what this means and all that. I'm not going to get into that. But look at Isaiah 63 now. Come down to Isaiah 63. Look at verse 1. Who is this? Now notice this here. That cometh from Edom with dyed garments from Bozrah. This that is glorious in his apparel, traveling in the greatness of his strength. I that speak in righteousness, mighty to serve. Now, mighty to save. I'm sorry, mighty to save. But what I want us to notice here is we're going to look at a little bit, a little intro of the Lord's flight path. Because this is going to show, and we'll get to, because there's a lot to show his flight path, folks. So I want to touch on, while we got a little time, touch on the direction in which he's going to come. And I might go back over this to show when he's coming from Edom. Edom, which is, you'll see Idumea and all that, the path in which he's going to come. Remember, right before that is the Red Sea. So, but notice his garments and all that. Look at verse 2 now. And we probably will come back to this. But notice in verse 1, traveling in the greatness of his strength. Who is he that cometh from Edom? I'm not saying he's going to be visiting the Edom and that's where he's going to start at. But this is the direction. You'll see that. Look at verse 2. Wherefore thou art thou red in thine apparel, and thy garments like him that treadeth in the wine fat. I have trodden the winepress alone, and of the people there was none with me. For I will tread them in mine anger, and trample them in my fury, and their blood shall be sprinkled upon my garments, and I will stain all my raiment. There it is there. There's the red, there's the dye. There's the dyed garments. It's not saying that, it's saying it's going to be like as people that wear dyed garments. Red. That's what his blood, his garments are going to be stained with their blood. Look at verse 4. For the day of vengeance is in mine heart, and the year of my redeemed is come. Now, I wonder who the redeemed are. Well, we know who the redeemed are, but this is when he's going to come back. And of course, he's going to be redeeming them, but he's also going to be delivering them. And he's going to be avenging them and all that. So what we see here is in the direction the Lord's going to come. He's going to come up. He's going to, as he goes up, it's going to, we looked at that before, as he's going to go to the Red Sea, and then he's going to start going through those waters. And it mentions by the brooks. He's going to go to this brook. He's going to go before this area. He's going to leave, and then in between Moab and Edom, he's going to be here in these waters, and then from there he's going to go and he's going to shoot across, and that's why it's significant to look at when looking at Jordan, because he's going to cross over the River Jordan. He's going to cross over that place, and he's going to cross over that place to now go and battle the other ones, because he's going to do one of those numbers, and so to which all Israel's enemies are going to be round about the land. But you know what? Let's just keep it going here, and for time's sake, we'll take a look at a few more if we can. But come now, look at Isaiah 34. Isaiah 34. Let's take a look at verse. Let's take a look at verse 1. Come near, ye nations, and hear, and hearken, ye people. Let the earth hear, and all them that is there. And I'm gonna highlight this: that is therein the world, and all things that come forth of it. Just had to highlight that, folks. Sorry. For the indignation of the Lord is upon all nations, and his fury is upon all their armies. He hath utterly destroyed them. He hath delivered them to the slaughter. Wait a minute. So, see, people, when they see this, they might assume that the Lord is just mad because people have armies. And yeah, these are the bad nations that hate the Lord. But they just have armies and they're on leave right now. No, these armies are preparing for battle against the Lord. That's what these battles are. Remember, we saw the verses where the Lord he sent out warning to them. Hey, get ready, the battle's coming. And I'm not saying he said it like that or sent flyers out or anything like that, but he told them to ready themselves. Look at verse 3. Their slain also shall be cast out, and their stink shall come up out of their carcasses, and the mountain shall be melted with their blood. And all the hosts of heaven shall be dissolved, and the heavens shall be rolled together as a scroll, and all their hosts shall fall down, and as the leaf falleth off from the vine, and as falling fig from the fig tree. And again, that goes back in that, you can see that in Revelation chapter 6, verse 12 through 17. We see that about the heavens rolling back as a scroll. But look at verse 5. For my sword shall be bathed in heaven. Behold, it shall come down upon Idumea and upon the people of my curse to judgment. Now, this is what's going to take place here. When the Lord's going to be doing this, it's going to be the Lord doing this. And notice where Idumea. Now we saw that where that is, and that's by Edom, and that's where this is the direction he's going to be coming. He's going to be coming from this direction here, and he's going to work his way up. Okay, so I know we saw this verse before, folks, but now again, as I said, I want to do an introduction into the flight path, and then the next time we're going to look at the flight path of the Lord himself. Look at verse 6. The sword of the Lord is filled with blood and made fat with fatness, and the blood of the lambs and goats and the fat of the kidneys of rams. For the Lord hath a sacrifice in Bozrah, and a great slaughter in the land of Idumea. Now notice, remember, the great slaughter. And I wanted to bring this back forth again because when I mentioned about every year they're going to come up and they're going to come to worship the Lord from other nations, they're going to walk past this. They're going to see these things. All the world is going to know and be in remembrance of this. The great slaughter in the land of Idumea. And verse 7, and the unicorn shall come down with them, and the bullocks with the bulls, and their land shall be soaked with blood, and their dust made fat with fatness. For it is a day of the Lord's vengeance and the year of recompense for the controversy of Zion. And as I said before, the controversy of Zion is with the two children, with Jacob and Esau. And if you know anything about Idumea or Edom, you know that the Edomites were of Esau's children. And they thought they had right to the land. Look at verse 9. And the streams, notice this, the streams therefore shall be turned into pitch, and the dust thereof into brimstone. Now remember, streams turned into pitch, and then the dust thereof into brimstone, and the land therefore shall become burning pitch. Verse 10, and it shall not be quenched night or day. They're gonna see this. The smoke thereof shall go up from where? Up forever. From generation to generation it shall lie in waste. None shall pass through it forever and ever. Now, notice it says none shall pass through, but it's going to be there for forever. It's going to be a memorial. And that memorial is going to be set there as remembrance of the Most High God. And those men who hated the Lord, they now saw the fury, his wrath. And they're going to be, as you see when the Lord comes, they're going to be shaken out of it. And all that, all those things going on there. But what we're going to do is, I'm going to take a look at Habakkuk, because I want to take a look at Habakkuk for a second here, since we have a little bit of time. We'll take a look at Habakkuk here, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this. We're going to run right through it. but I'll come back with the context, and I'll come back with what with how things are, how this all goes into the flight path of the Lord and the actual route and things. Because I wanted to say this for so when I'm going through, I want to look at take a look at a map and things like that, so we can see the actual. They're going to come this way, they're going to come up, they're going to go around. They're not just going. He's not going to just travel. He's going to be fighting battles, come across, but he's going to be drying up those waters, and those dragons cast out into dry land. They're going to be caged. They're not going to be able to get into the bodies of men or anything like that, or any other animal or anything like that. They're going to be caged foul spirits. But let's move on. Come over to Habakkuk now. Habakkuk chapter 3. Sorry. Look at verse 3. God came from Teman, and the Holy One from Mount Paran, Selah. His glory is covered. His glory has covered the heavens, and the earth was full of his praise. Now, we're going to see in a second. Well, not in a second. As I said, next study, I'm going to show you where when it says he came from Teman, and the Holy One from the Mount of Paran. And we're going to see where the locations of that is, because a lot of times when people look at this, they'll say, well, wait a minute, no, I think you're just making too much out of it. We're going to see in the direction he came and where he's going to come back to. And this is not America. This is not Mount Everest or even just none of those things. But this is exactly where it says it is. And so verse 4. And his brightness was as the light. He had horns coming out of his hand, and there was the hiding of his power. Before him went pestilence, and burning coals went forth at his feet. He stood and measured the earth, and beheld and drove asunder the nations, and the everlasting mountains were scattered, and the perpetual hills did bow. His ways are everlasting. I saw the tents of Cushan in affliction, and the curtains in the land of Midian did tremble. Was the Lord displeased against the rivers? Was thine anger against the rivers? Was thy wrath against the sea, that thou didst ride upon thine horses and thy chariots of salvation? Now, you would think that the Lord had something against water, just looking at this. But what they know is, yeah, there was something in wrath and anger against the waters, but it was because of who was in the waters. That's the point. It was because of who was in those waters. And we're going to see those dragons, those Satan's heads in those waters. Look at verse 9. Thy bow was made quite naked, according to the oath of the tribes, even thy word, Selah. Thou didst cleave the earth with rivers. Now you see what's being done in the over and over mention about the rivers, the sea. Notice the sea, one sea. It's not the Red Sea, the Dead Sea, and even the oceans. No, the sea. And then it mentioned the rivers. They're going to be in rivers too. Brooks. They're going to be in brooks and things like that. And all you have to do is think like this, like when mentioned rivers, the Jordan River itself is pretty, it encompassed the land. It starts, that's why I said, well, we'll look at that when we get to the maps, folks, because that's what I want to take a look at, and look at those maps and look at the issue, just how much water is even in the land. And we might not think that there is, that there is throughout the land of Israel, but there's a lot of water there. There's going to be Satan's enemies, Satan's heads Dragons are going to be in there. And with his people, the nations right before it. And they're going to be waging turmoil in this. And what you see over there in Jerusalem right now, folks, that's not Israel. That's not, those are Christ rejectors. Those are not the people. They reject our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ as even being a real person. That just goes to show how much they hate him. They call him, they say he's a myth. They don't even believe there was actually a man in Nazareth that got persecuted and was a good man. Or not. They don't believe anything of that because they can't believe any of it's true. I've talked to them and they say he's a myth. But what we'll do, we'll close here. And then the next study, as I said, now we're going to be looking at the next study, the actual path of the Lord. We're going to take a look at a couple of verses we put into perspective about the ark going before the Lord, going before them as the Lord himself. And now when we get to look at the flight path, now we can see the power. And when you see what we just looked at in the book of Revelation about the testimony, when it's open, it's open right at the time when he's getting ready to scatter his enemies. He's getting ready to scatter his enemies. Now, look, you see it's open now. The ark is now open. That's where it went to. It's no longer on this. That's some looking for the ark. But again, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Till next time, thank you.